Hello everyone, Luciano Oliveira, Oliveira Lawyers. Today is Wednesday, May the 15th, 12:34, São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro time, and we are here live. I see we have some messages. Bill, oi Luciano, I'm here. Bill, thank you the support, Bill. Ryan Schaefer, when is the stream starting? Yeah, a few minutes late, Ryan, but we are here. Please feel free to share the topic of your interest so we can have this discussed here live. And together we're going to uncover, the routes for foreign citizens to live and thrive in Brazil. So while we have our participants warming up, sharing just a consultation I had this morning with a gentleman in Florianopolis, a former law enforcement in the United States, and he applied for the retirement visa through a consulate in the United States after securing the retirement visa. He enjoyed Brazil. He stayed for the time authorized for his residency. But unfortunately, he tried to renew by himself. And I was trying to understand the reason why he would assume he could do by himself. And at the end of the consultation, I had the full picture. And in his words, he said, listen, to get the visa, it was somewhat, easy because we went through the consulate. But when it was time to renew, it was the complete opposite. There were no resources. He would go to the federal police. He did call a bunch of different Brazilian departments, and he couldn't do it. So now he's out of status, and unfortunately, chances of renewing the visa after it's expired, or better saying, renewing the residency authorization after it's expired, is difficult. Most probably than not, he will need to file a completely new retirement application, okay? A retirement residency application. So now, we're discussing with him, because if he had renewed the retirement residency before the expiration date of his R&M card, he wouldn't have, in theory, to get a new FBI background check. Right? Because think with me, he did get the FBI background check for the initial application for the retirement visa, but after he moved to Brazil, in theory, he wouldn't need to show U.S. records anymore. He would need to show only the Brazilian records. But because he didn't renew before the expiration of his residency authorization, now, most probably than not, he's going to need to redo everything from scratch. And he's deciding if he's going to, retain our services to apply while in Brazil, or if he's going to, go back to the United States, take care of some stuff, and potentially file the application through a consulate. Okay, so here is some sharing, and whenever I share my clients' stories or cases, of course, I never provide information about who they are. It's more about the case dynamics, so you guys can also hopefully learn with other people's mistakes. So you don't need to learn with your mistakes. Okay, I hope it makes sense. Ryan has a question. How long does the digital nomad visa last? The digital nomad visa, Ryan, is going to last for a year, and it's renewable for a second year, and that's what we have in the digital nomad visa regulation: 1 year plus another year. Two common questions that we usually hear as a follow-up to this first question is, when does it start to count? So it starts to count usually when you get the resident card, okay? Because there could be a substantial gap in time between you start your journey towards securing the digital nomad visa and the day when you actually receive your RNM number. Actually, it's not the card, it's the day in which the RNM number is issued by the Polícia Federal. That's the official beginning of your digital nomad stay in Brazil. So, just an example, like if we have a client asking us about a timeline and the client is starting with us today, we usually say, listen, it's going to take you like about 30 days to secure the documents. Once you provided the documents, it takes us like a couple of weeks in reviewing, organizing, getting the translation for the documents, and actually filing with the Brazilian immigration system. Once we file, around 2 months down the road, the Brazilian immigration is going to provide us feedback upon reviewing the application. And usually they're going to ask for something, like it could be, let's say, if you are in Brazil already, they could say, all right, you provided a background check for the United States, but now you've been in Brazil for a couple of months, and therefore I want criminal records for Brazil as well. And when the client is working with us, we handle, we get both criminal records, one at the state level and another one at the federal level. We provide to the immigration, and usually a week or 10 days later, they are going to approve the digital nomad, and it's going to be printed in the DOU, which means Diário Oficial da União, which translates as the official newspaper of the federal government. And once it is published, then we can schedule your appointment with the federal police. At this appointment, you're going to basically show up and present your passport and your apostilled birth certificate with a sworn translation. And if everything goes well, they're going to give you the RNM number. So once they issue the RNM number, the clock starts to run in terms of your stay as a digital nomad visa in Brazil. Okay, so this is like a major question that we have. The second question as a follow-up to your question, Ryan, is usually, can I renew more than once, right? So we heard about applicants who have renewed more than once, but it's not guaranteed, particularly now that the immigration personnel, the management of the immigration framework in Brazil is being replaced actually since last year. Last year, the Lula administration took power in January, and it does take a good number of months for those changes to start to occur, and we are in the middle of those changes. So they could actually change substantially the visa. They could say, well, with us, you're going to be able to renew indefinitely, right? So if that happens, we're going to know, and we're going to tell you guys. But as of now, the official regulation for the digital nomad visa says one renewal. All right, Ryan. The 552, good morning. Welcome. The 552 is also supporting us like for the last several lives. Thank you, the 552. K2L, e aí, cara, tudo bem? Wow, we have our, closest friends here today. I'm so glad to see you guys. So the retirement visa, it's renewed after a year, then again after 2 more years, then when it's the next renewal after that. So it should be, and I was discussing with this gentleman this morning, this very same question. Like he said, all right, so when does it increase? Like, I mean, isn't this going to be like a 10-year thing? And in theory, no, it's going to be always renewed on a similar basis. But because of changes we identified like back in November, I believe they are trying to make the retirement visa more attractive. One of the changes that occurred is that they are asking for the FBI background check for the retirement visa, and until November, there was no such need. They would work with pretty much any type of a background check, right? It could be, I don't know, New York court system. You go online and pay $80, you get the records. In California, a bunch of counties, you just send a request. They're gonna, give you the records without charging a fee. So in many states, you can very easily get the background check, and that's what we were doing until November for the retirement visa. But in November, guess what? They started to say, "Listen, no good. If we are only accepting from now on the FBI background check for U.S. citizens, of course, right? Like for other nationalities, it's going to be whatever the country has on a nationwide basis. But for the U.S., they started to ask, and our interpretation is that now the retirement visa, it's up to pair or is comparable to like the marriage residency. Okay. So the marriage residency it's on the top of our immigration framework, and it looks like the new federal administration is trying to make the retirement visa something much higher level than it was during the past administration, right? Even though the past administration created the retirement visa, right? So let's give credit to where credit is due. But the good thing about the new administration is that they are making the retirement visa like stronger. And our interpretation is that if you are in Brazil for 4 years under the retirement visa, you could potentially apply for the Brazilian residency, or for the Brazilian citizenship. And once you secure the citizenship, of course, you don't need to worry about immigration anymore. All right, so that would be a track, Katie, for you to, leave behind, this kind of, eternal renewal of the retirement visa. But if you don't speak Portuguese, then yes, it may take you way longer than 4 years to apply for the Brazilian citizenship and leave the immigration requirements behind. Jerry, is it Jerry? Gary, I'm going to go with Gary. Gary, 2001, I have Argentina citizenship. Can I apply for a Brazil residency visa as a Mercosur member without requiring income and investment? Gary, we are not really familiar with the Mercosur, which, for those who do not know, is like just like the European Union. We have like our Latin America Union, and it's called Mercosur. But Gary, I can tell you that yes, there are some routes for people from Argentina like you to stay in Brazil with potentially lower requirements than those applicable to other nationalities. Okay, my recommendation, Gary, I don't know if you speak Spanish or if you speak Portuguese, is to find a law firm that specializes in the Mercosur residencies, because then they are gonna be in a better position to assist you. But thank you for sharing, and feel free to ask other questions, Gary. Ryan, thanks for the response. You're very welcome, Ryan. If the digital nomad visa expires after 2 years and the person wants to keep staying in Brazil after that, what would the options be? That's a good question. So many of our clients, when they are considering starting their journeys with the digital nomad visa, they are going to have this concern. All right, so I see I can start, but then after I am warming up, then eventually the doors are going to close. And the concept, I think that if you think about the digital nomad visa from a perspective that this is a kind of a bridge for you to test the waters and potentially find a more longer term solution, I think that the digital nomad visa will make more sense. I also think that this is actually how the visa was conceived under President Bolsonaro administration. The idea wasn't to give you like a permanent stay in Brazil, but actually it was to open the doors so you could have like an easy way to stay in Brazil for up to 2 years. Okay, and after these 2 years are over, then you're gonna need another route, and that's actually the essence of your question. So most of our clients, they are gonna consider purchasing real estate in Brazil. And actually, even like I had a consultation yesterday with a very young lady from the UK, and she was unfortunately entangled in a whole mess with a real estate transaction. She did hire like an individual lawyer, like he wasn't part of a law firm, and things didn't go, unfortunately, as expected. But the first thing I told her, and she was trying to rush, by the way, like she is out of status, and she was rushing, like, listen, I need to buy a property, like, I mean, right away, right? And I said, listen, we don't work like that. We're gonna recommend 90 days for the transaction, and if we can close in 45 days, great. But we don't work like in a rush, because that's why. I mean, I didn't say that, but I thought with myself, that's why you're probably in this situation, right? And she lost not only the down payment for the property, but she also had to pay the real estate commission in full. So it was a huge loss, right? So I told her, listen, we don't work like that, and my recommendation for you would be, we get the digital nomad for you. So now you're gonna have like a full year, and during this full year, you don't need to rush yourself. You know, you go find the ideal property for you as per your requirements, and then we're gonna handle this transaction in a peaceful manner, so you don't need to lose money just like you lost right now, and then you go, because then once you buy the property, you have like 4 years under the temporary permanent residency. It's temporary, right? Like it's not permanent, but it is considered as the same level of a permanent residency. And therefore, even though it's temporary, it's going to give you access to citizenship after 4 years, potentially, right? Like we can never tell for sure. But so there you go. Like usually our recommendation is going to be, you get the digital nomad to test the waters, make sure you want to commit for a longer term, and then you could use, the property purchase route. Now, I can hear some of you saying, well, what about if I don't have the money to buy a property, right? Well, and then you need to consider other routes. Marriage, okay, is a route. The common law marriage, which we call in Brazil a stable union, is another route, okay? But outside of those routes, I guess the retirement. But if you're not like, if you don't have a retirement income, that's not accessible to you. But the reality is, Brazil could probably make it easier for people to stay for the long run, right? Like I like to compare to Portugal because I'm somewhat familiar with the Portuguese immigration framework, and in Portugal, for instance, you have the D7 visa, which is the passive income visa. Like nobody is concerned if you're retired or not. Like as long as you have passive income, you're good. So this is gonna work as a retirement visa, but it's also gonna work as a kind of money visa. Like if you have a stable passive income, you're welcome to go to Portugal. The amount is unbelievable in my opinion. Like you just need $1,000. So Brazil is asking for $2,000. Portugal asks for $1,000 a month. It's actually 820 euros, so maybe it's even less than 1,000. And after 5 years, like Brazil is 4, Portugal makes it 5, but still, like, I mean, after 5 years, you can get your citizenship in Portugal. Another advantage, Portugal actually gives access to the citizenship application for a wider variety of residencies, right? Or visa, like we use visa here at the channel. There's some distinctions. Actually, visas, at least from the Brazilian immigration perspective, is only when you are entering Brazil. After you are in Brazil, you're going to get a residency, right? You don't have a visa, you have a residency. But anyhow, what I'm saying is, like, I agree that Brazil could do better in terms of offering more paths for people to stay for the longer term. Charles Martin. Welcome, Charles. One of my friends who lives in Brazil has overstayed there for around 5 years without any issues. So if that's the case, what advantages does a digital nomad retirement visa bring, for example? Well, if you overstay, you are out of status. And although it should be a very improbable, like you could be expelled, right? Like, I mean, you are not following the rules. And I have another example just like yours, right? Like, we have a client today who overstayed for 7 years. So very young gentleman, and he came to Brazil right after, his teenager years, and he fell in love, but, he didn't know better, right? Like, so he just overstayed. But this, of course, like, it's not ideal because you do have a bunch of limitations. If you don't have like a valid residency, you shouldn't have a bank account, right? You're not gonna be able to have a lease. You're not gonna be able to hire utilities, right? Like to have a regular rental for which you're gonna have your internet, electricity, and other conveniences, right? So it is feasible for you to overstay in Brazil, but I would say that for most people that's not really an option, right? Like, I mean, they don't want to be in this type of limbo situation. And again, at least from a theoretical perspective, you could be deported. You could be expelled, right? Like, I mean, if you get involved in some type of situation with a police force, this could trigger the deportation, and you could be arrested, right? Like, I mean, there is a bunch of downsides, right, Charles? But I understand the point. Like, we have a client who overstayed for 7 years, and he volunteered to go to the Polícia Federal. He said, "Listen, I'm here, to take care of my status, and what can I do?" And they said, well, first thing, on the spot, right? Like, they charged him as an overstay, and they applied the maximum financial penalty, which is like 10,000 reais, roughly $2,000. And he was prepared for that, right? Like, so he volunteered to go to the Polícia Federal. They immediately issued like it's like a document, like a citation that he overstayed, and he's going to have 60 days to leave the country. In addition to that, that he should pay the fine, and he did pay the fine in full. He paid the 10,000 reais. And right after paying the 10,000 reais, it is like, he could have a shot for applying for, something that would bring him back to status. So in his case, now we are in the process of applying for the digital nomad visa just as a bridge. And his parents, right? Like, I mean, he's still a young gentleman, even after 7 years in Brazil. And one of the consultations we had even with his parents, and they are trying to get like finance in the US, right? Not in Brazil. You can get financing in Brazil for the real estate investment visa. But they are trying to get finance in the US so he can, basically buy a property probably in the Northeast, because then it's going to be 700,000 reais instead of 1 million. And then this is going to give him, like a clear path to stay in Brazil forever, right? Legally and with all the rights you can expect, in addition to qualify for the Brazilian citizenship. Okay, Charles, I hope that helps. Moses, welcome, Moses. Good to see you. Boa tarde, sir. Boa tarde, Moses. I'm afraid that after investing $200,000 in a property in São Paulo, after the property is put up for rent or on Airbnb, it will be difficult to repatriate my rental income to my country. So, Moses, in terms of moving monies, like Brazil, it's a unique animal in a sense that there is a crazy, unbelievable level of red tape bureaucracy after you cross the 10,000 US dollars threshold, right? So let's say if you're getting, I don't know, like 5,000 reais a month, we're talking about $1,000. This type of money, it's usually suitable for the so-called money apps. And I'm sure you guys know as well as I do the names, right? Like we have Wise, which was TransferWise. We have Remitly. We have Sean. We have, PayPal. There is a bunch of them, okay? So for this type of money, Moses, actually, it shouldn't be that difficult for you to send the money abroad. Of course, you will need to retain like a CPA to assist you with the tax matters, right? There is also the taxation aspect of sending money back to your country. But usually, you're going to need to deal with like currency exchange banks only for big amounts, right? So let's say I would be more concerned, Moses, if you're going to sell this property. Let's say Moses buys the property and does the rental, enjoys his time in Brazil. And then after 5 years, because, he did study Portuguese, Moses says, well, now I applied for citizenship. Now I am a Brazilian citizen. I don't need this apartment anymore. And you sell the apartment. In this case, you're not going to be able to send the 200,000 or maybe 250, right? Like 5 years down the road, 250,000 US dollars back to your native country. In this case, you're going to need to retain a currency exchange bank that is going to work with you to make this remittance feasible, right? You're not going to use Wise, you're not going to use Remitly, you're not going to use any of the money apps. You're going to retain a currency exchange bank for this particular purpose. I'm going to share a link with you guys with the full list of financial institutions in Brazil that are authorized by the Brazilian Central Bank to handle currency exchange. All right, the link is right there. And if you want to know the banks we work with, it's very easy. You're going to search for banks specializing in currency exchange. That's the banks we work with. And we actually have a formal partnership with some of them so we can assist our clients with the moving money cross-border challenge. It's a big challenge indeed, Moses, but I'm telling you, there is always a track, a path. They are also concerned with the source of money. So even to buy the property in the first place, you're going to need to explain the origin or the source of your funds. They're also going to look at the paperwork from the seller. So there is a full compliance. Like when you send in the 200,000 to Brazil, there's going to be a full compliance before this money is released into Brazil. But the good thing, Moses, is if you're going to have any problems moving money around, it's going to be at the beginning, right? That's when they are going to look at the transaction, they are going to find a problem, and they would potentially say, well, this is not going to work. So if they do this compliance and you are able to send the money to the seller, right, and buy your property, most probably than not, you're not going to have an issue to repatriate your income, or even like the proceeds of a potential sale in the future. Most probably than not. I hope this helps, Moses. Gary, can I buy an apartment under construction as a foreigner without an investor visa? Do I have an ability to connect utilities such as electricity, gas, water, internet as a foreigner? No CPF. No, you can't do anything without a CPF. All right. So Gary, there are two different types of documents. All right. Let's separate here. The RNM, that's the Brazilian ID for foreign citizens. Okay, that's like our ID, or that's going to be your ID as a foreign citizen in Brazil. And there is a second document, which is the tax ID, known as a CPF. Without a CPF, you can't buy anything in Brazil. Okay, like for the transfer of real estate rights in Brazil, you must have a tax ID. So that's one of the first steps in your journey as a buyer of real estate in Brazil. Okay, you don't buy real estate unless you have a CPF. Now, the RNM, the Brazil ID for foreign citizens, is not required. Okay, it's not required. And the good thing about the CPF is that in theory, you can even get it at a consulate in your country, right? So if you want to share about where you come from, Gary, I would assume maybe the United States. So if it is in the United States, you could basically just go to the consulate in charge of your jurisdiction. You cannot do like forest shopping. You cannot pick the consulate. It got to be the specific consulate responsible for your address in your state. And then you can go to this consulate. Of course, you're going to schedule an appointment up front, and they are going to issue the tax ID CPF for you free of charge. All right, so pretty easy to get the CPF. Now, let's talk about the utilities, right? Like the utilities, most probably than not, you're not going to be able to set up the utilities without the RNM. Okay, so here you would be able to buy the apartment. You could enjoy your apartment, but you wouldn't be able to set up the utilities. We have a client in this very same situation, right? Like she's actually a lawyer in the United States. She's a lawyer and she's an immigration lawyer, right? She does type of similar work that we do. So she bought the apartments and she never set up the account. So we had to set up the accounts on our firm's name, right? So like electricity, gas, internet, everything shows our firm as the account holder, right? And we don't do that very often, but this is more like for clients who have a more longer term commitment with the firm, right? Like we're not going to do that for anyone, right? Like we're going to do that for someone who we can trust, like on a long term relationship. And that's exactly the case with her. And just to give you an idea, like, I mean, she doesn't ask us to send the money, the income for the apartments to the US. So we have like a separate account set up for her 2 apartments, and all the income, comes to the firm and goes to those 2 accounts. And of course, like we charge for the service of managing the apartments for her. And we also, charge for other services, like, for, tax returns and other things that she does ask the firm every now and then. Okay, so there is a way, but you just need a CPF. You don't need the RNM card to buy the property, right? You would need the RNM card to set up the utilities. Indeed, many, for instance, they buy property in Brazil, they work with a realtor. Sometimes the realtor is going to, charge like a monthly fee, and the realtor is going to have like the utility bills on the realtor's name. And they also going to assist with other things like doing short-term rentals. So there is always some type of arrangement that you can use, Gary, to achieve this goal without like a longer-term a visa em Brazil. All right, K12, eu falo, mas só mais ou menos. All right, I see Kate is practicing his Portuguese with us. Tenho aprendido desde ano passado com uma professora de Recife. Você tem uma língua linda, mas com muitas regras. Vou estar no Brasil em julho. Última vez foi em 1997. Yes. So here he's sharing that he's learning Portuguese. It's a very beautiful language, but too many rules. Yes, I mean Portuguese. Like when you compare to English, like I think it's substantially, not sure if more difficult, but it does have like more rules and just something that is actually common for Latin languages, such as French, Italian, and Portuguese. We have like genders for the words, right? Like, so some words, they are going to be masculine or male or feminine or female, right? And then you need to combine, like when you're using, adjectives or, qualifiers or articles, all of them, you need to know up front from memory if this word is going to be masculine or feminine in order to be able to use the proper, article, pronoun, or adjective, qualifier. So yes, I mean it does represent, I guess, like an increased level of challenge to learn the language, right? But the good thing is like the dynamics, they're pretty similar to what you're gonna find for Italian, Spanish, and French, and even Russian, right? Like Russian. Despite the Cyrillic alphabet, right, it shows like those funny characters, but it's actually the dynamic is quite similar to the Latin languages in a sense that you also have masculine and feminine words and structures and pronouns. It's super similar, right? Like I can tell I did study Russian when I was a teenager for several years, and I can still read a lot of Russian. I cannot communicate. Like if a Russian tries to speak with me, it's gonna be like that kind of truncated, very basic communication. But reading, I guess I still remember the structure of the language. And believe it or not, many words, they are going to be pretty similar to Portuguese, right? For instance, we say televisão for TV. In Russian, it's televisor. In radio, right? Like radio, I think it's even the same in the United States. You say radio. In Portuguese, we say rádio. And in Russian, you also say radio, okay? So pretty interesting. But yes, I mean, if you're going to learn Portuguese, maybe you can expand it to other languages as well. And yes, I mean, the Portuguese language is going to be a requirement for the citizenship. Even though there is a plan B, I always joke about plan B. Plan B works like this. Like, I mean, in 5 years, speak Portuguese, you can get the citizenship. If in 15 years you cannot learn Portuguese, they are going to give you the citizenship because they're going to say, all right, like I understand you are hopeless. We're going to give you the citizenship now that you've been for 15 years in Brazil, all right? So there is this plan B, which I hope you don't need, but it is there anyhow. Germon, good day, everyone. Very welcome, Germon. Good to see you over here. I just want permanent residency in Brazil. Got it. Yes, permanent residency is the best. You get the permanent residency. In theory, like if you buy real estate, you will need to keep real estate for as long as you wanna keep the residency. Okay, Herman. So just keep that in mind. If you don't mind, keeping the real estate property, you don't need to apply for the citizenship. The rights coming from a permanent residency, they are going to be pretty similar to the rights you're going to have as a citizen. Two major exceptions are going to be voting rights, right? Like, I mean, as a permanent resident, you don't have a voting rights. The second distinction is going to be access to rural properties, okay? Like rural properties, when you buy as a foreign citizen, you have a very well defined and kind of strict limits in terms of size of the rural land you can buy. And if you are a citizen, guess what? You don't have any limits, right? So very interesting. We have, like every now and then consultations with foreign citizens who want to circumvent the limitations on rural properties. There are all types of cases, like very repetitive case that happens is like people want to buy Amazon land, right? Amazon land. So we as Brazilians, yes, we can buy. I'm not sure if we want to buy a piece of land in the middle of nowhere, but very often we're going to have this type of consultation with foreign citizens, and I saw that happening, most of the time with U.S. citizens, but people from New Zealand, people from the UK, and other countries, they say, I want to buy land. I know it's not possible. Can you tell me how I can do it, right? I'm not sure what they expect us to do, or either magic or, tell them to defraud the law. So unfortunately, there is no workaround. There are some circumstances in which, in theory, like a foreign entity could buy land or could receive a land as repayment for a loan. But my problem with those approaches is that if you're doing that from the get-go with the intent of circumventing the law, they are not really options on the table. They exist more as an outcome of a certain set of circumstances, but they are not there as regular routes. So if you're using those routes from the get-go, it means you are circumventing the law, and maybe it's going to work, maybe it's not going to work, right? So we would never advise foreign citizens to buy rural land, when they cannot do so. Okay, and so, Herman, that's one, or let's say, a major distinction between being a PR, a permanent resident in Brazil, and being a citizen, right? Citizen, no limitations, go buy your huge tracts of land in the Amazon and be happy. But if you are a PR, you don't have access to that, right? And voting rights, which I'm not sure if it's a big deal for most applicants, but that's going to be another distinction. Charles Martin, wow, that's an interesting story. Thanks for sharing. Absolutely, Charles. I'm happy to make this as entertaining as possible. Sometimes, legal stuff, it's dry, and we need to try to bring some colors to make this thing more interesting to you guys. So that's my job, to make this thing more suitable for a live stream. So Charles is asking, but what happens if an overstayer gets married or has child in Brazil? Will they also be deported? No, they are not going to be deported. I think there is even some legal provision for that. Like, I don't recall, the law or the article, but I think there is even language in the law, almost sure, right? 90% sure there is language in the law saying that no foreign citizens who are married to a Brazilian or are the parents of, or is the parent of a Brazilian child will ever be deported. Okay, I'm almost sure about that. And yes, that's a major exception, and that's because of the way our culture sees family, right? In a very unique way. So we think, the family is at the top of any type of priority scale you could think of. So if you have family in Brazil, most probably they're not. Nobody's going to deport you, even if you are overstaying for 10 years, right? But listen, if you're married or if you have a Brazilian child, that's your ticket to become first a permanent resident, and then later on a Brazilian citizen if you want to do so. Okay, so if you are under this type of circumstance, you have an open road for the PR without having to spend money on real estate and fighting to renew whatever you would have otherwise. Jerry, okay, can I get CPF as a foreigner from the consulate in my home country? Yes, you can. okay? Until October of 2023, you couldn't, because we were working under the President Bolsonaro framework, who was trying to make things easy for people like you, foreign citizens, right? So he created a channel for foreign citizens to apply for the Brazilian tax ID through email. And we still have this guide. Like if you come to our website, and I'm gonna share this link with you. If you check our website, you just search for CPF, which is the name of the Brazilian tax ID. You're gonna find this guide, which we haven't deprecated. Just because we still hope someone will have some common sense and get this thing back on, okay? Because we know the current administration is doing things that are not ideal, like, chasing U.S. citizens for a visa. And they have other, mostly ideology oriented policies, just like this one. I just shared a link. So we had a guide in which, with 15 minutes of your time, you would get the Brazilian tax ID known as a CPF, right? You would just need to follow this guide that you see upon clicking on this link. However, the Lula administration said, no, this is too easy. No, let's not make it that easy, right? We need reciprocity. Right? The U.S. Makes our people to jump, loops, and so wait for a couple of years to get a visa. That's not good. Let's make their lives more difficult. And they closed the email door that was back in October of 2023. And after October 2023, the Brazilian consulates, they are relearning how to issue the CPF, okay? So if it was like November or December, I would tell you, maybe you're going to get it, maybe you're not going to get it. But nowadays, has been, more than half a year. So every single consulate should be able to issue a tax ID. But again, it's very unfortunate that the email path has been closed since October. All right, Jerry. So I hope that helps. Tone Atlas. Welcome, Atlas. My apologies if this topic was already covered. No need for apologies. You're very welcome. And we do address topics, in a repetitive manner. That's just how it is. So no concerns over there, Atlas. How are the tax amounts determined for those with a retirement visa? Yes, so they are going to be determined by the Brazilian government. And you're gonna need to pay taxes in Brazil, okay? I know that in some countries, like you have a kind of tax-free type of retirement benefits, but not in Brazil. In Brazil, you're gonna need to pay taxes. If you are already paying taxes in your country, most probably than not, Brazil would apply a credit, matching whatever taxes you paid in your native country. And in theory, like Brazil tries to avoid double taxation, right? So basically, Brazil says, I'm going to charge you 10. If you paid 3 in your country, you're going to need to pay 7. In lots of cases, particularly for people from high tax brackets, they're not gonna pay anything in Brazil, particularly from Europe. Like in Europe, there are some countries that are gonna charge crazy tax brackets like 40%, 35, 40, 50%, right? So if you're paying that and you come to Brazil, our highest bracket is gonna be 27.5 for now. The current government is trying to increase like the taxation brackets, like they're craving money like crazy. But for now, whatever you're paying on top of 27.5, it means that basically you wouldn't need to pay any taxes in Brazil. All right, Atlas. So that's the concept. Of course, whenever you're making such a serious decision like to move it to another country, we may recommend, like once you have a consultation with us, we may recommend actually a second consultation with a tax attorney just to discuss the taxation aspects of your plans And even sometimes some clients, particularly when they have a lot of income, they are going to choose to have like this type of planning to know exactly how much they should be paying, once they are in Brazil. Okay, because yes, if you live in Brazil, just like any other country, you're going to be a tax resident in Brazil. Justin Myers, welcome Justin. Roughly how long does it take to approve the digital nomad visa if I am already in Brazil? Justin, I can tell you joined us like in the middle of the live because that was probably one of the first things we discussed today, but I'm more than happy to share with you the timeline. We usually tell our clients a month to collect the documents. We take an additional couple of weeks to prepare the application with the Brazilian immigration because we need a translation. We may need to complement some type of document that you're providing that we don't think it's ideal. And so within 15 days, we usually prepare the package and we actually file with the Brazilian immigration. Brazilian immigration is going to review your application in roughly 60 days. And they are going to either approve or send us like a list of additional requirements to fulfill. Okay, most of the time there's going to be some type of requirement. The good thing is that once you provided the requested requirement or the requested document, usually they're not going to take an additional couple of months to review. They're going to review in roughly 7 days to 10 days. And then, if you work with us, most probably than not, you're going to get the approval. And once you have the approval, we're going to schedule an appointment with the federal police, Brazilian Federal Police, so you can receive your RNM number, which is the identification for foreign citizens in Brazil. All right, let me ask you guys to do me a favor and like this live so other people can find us. If you're enjoying the content, do me this favor, click like so other people can find the live stream and also find the content later on. Like if you missed the beginning of our live stream, you can also watch the recording. And if you like the live stream, the like is going to also be on the recording and other people can find this content. All right, let's see who else. Ronnie Dio, welcome Ronnie. I was missing you. If I buy a home before being married or in a stable union with a Brazilian citizen, then later we get a divorce, is the home still considered in the split or divorce? No, Ronnie, the house, like if you're buying a property prior to the marriage or the stable union, that's going to be considered separate property, okay? Separate property, unless you are marrying under, there is one marriage regime in Brazil, like it's not like in California or Texas. Like if you're in Texas, there is a family law. You don't pick the marriage regime, right? Like the marriage asset regime. Like you're marrying under Texas law. Yes, you can have like a prenuptial agreement changing how the law would work, but there is just a single system. In Brazil, we have 4 different systems. And one of the 4 marriage systems is going to be for universal property, meaning that even your property from before the marriage would be a community property, right? And of course, you wouldn't pick this marriage regime unless, I don't know, it makes sense for you and your partner. But the vast majority of Brazilians, they are going to pick what we call separação parcial de bens, which is like a partial community property, meaning that only property acquired during the course of the marriage is going to be considered community property. Okay, and interesting enough, it's somewhat close to what Texas law says. Okay, so even though like such a distinct legal systems, but the way that Texas law is going to address assets in general, it's kind of close to what you see in Brazil as the partial community property, which is the standard marriage track for assets when you marry in Brazil. All right, let's see. Hermon, could I buy vacant lots to build on in any Brazilian city? Vacant lots, yes, vacant lot. Even if it's rural property, I would assume it's a small piece of land, and therefore I would say you shouldn't have any issues to buy a vacant lot. There is a warning for real estate investment visa planners that vacant lots are not going to qualify as real estate investment for the purpose of the permanent residency. If you read the regulation for the real estate investment visa, you're going to see that there is a need for a construction to exist in the lot, right? So yes, you can buy it, no problem with buying, but it does not qualify for the real estate investment visa. All right, Hermon. Charles Martin, what made you want to become a lawyer? Was it a passion you had since a young age, or was it a family tradition to become a lawyer? Yes, such an interesting question, Charles. So yes, and you're not going to believe if I tell you, like my father, he was a lawyer. And he worked with real estate for his entire life, right? So when I was young, I used to go with my father to different places. All right, Gary, that's awesome. Appreciate Gary. T.E., welcome T.E. I think it's your first time here. You're very welcome. Good afternoon. Do I have to physically be in Brazil to apply for a CPF? My country does not have a Brazilian consulate. You don't have to be physically in Brazil. We can do it with a power of attorney. Okay, that's a service that we actually provide. We don't like to provide much because we think like if you are abroad, the ideal route is through a consulate. But if you don't have a consulate and you need to do it remotely, you could potentially use a service like ours to file through a power of attorney. Justin Myers, sorry for the duplicate question. You're very welcome, Justin. No worries. Feel free to send us questions and topics of interests. D. Gibbs, welcome. Good to see you over here, D. Gibbs. Good afternoon to you as well. We're going to be heading to the end of today live stream, but I have good news for you. It looks like we're going to have another live stream on Friday, and that's going to be with Mark Saint. Mark Saint is another let's say YouTuber. He has a much bigger channel. Mark Saint's channel is Brasil Unsubtitled, and he was very kind. He was very kind to invite me to chat with him on Friday. On this Friday, I believe it's gonna be at 3 p.m. Rio de Janeiro time, and I'm gonna share Mark Saint's channel. Mark Saint's channel right here. Okay, so if you show up, hopefully everything is gonna work as planned. But so it is gonna be this Friday, 3 p.m. I'm gonna do São Paulo time because that's where Mark is, and Mark is very passionate about São Paulo. I'm also originally from São Paulo, by the way. So it's going to be this Friday at 3 p.m. We're going to have a live stream with Mark. And to find the live stream, you should visit Mark's channel. It's not going to be on my channel, okay? I'm taking a look here. I don't see a link. I don't see a link for the live yet. I'm taking a look at the Mark's channel. But yes, we are scheduled for Friday, 3 p.m. You have Mark's channel URL right there. And Last comment here, the 552, you should do a collab with this guy called the Swedish Gringo. I think that would be nice. Thank you for the suggestion. I think I know I saw his content already. We're gonna reach out. All right, the 552. Thank you for sharing. We like to do those collabs. I think it brings more life to the live stream. It becomes more interesting, right? Less just like a talking head, right? Like, I mean, we want to be more than a talking head. So really a good idea, the 552. So I'm going to say thank you to all of you for participating. I see we had a lot of likes today. I really appreciate that. That's important for our channel. This is important for my firm, for myself. And hope to see you guys on Friday, 3 p.m. on Mark's channel. And we're going to be back on Sunday. Okay, Sunday, as usual, we're going to be meeting at 3:30 Rio de Janeiro time on Sunday. If you have any topics of your interest or any questions, still, make a note. You can come to our channel in 5 minutes after now. We're gonna have the schedule for Sunday. You can click on notify me, so you don't need it to keep in your schedule because then a message is gonna be sent to you as soon as the live is up, and then you can watch, ask your questions, and participate. I really enjoy when people are participating, sharing stories, sharing questions. It makes our live stream so more interesting. Thank you so much, guys. You have a blessed rest of your day.